Hello, everyone, and welcome to an exciting interview with Nick Prestera, who is part of our Exoconscious Coaching community. Nick is part of the experts and experiencers that are available to learn about on our website, exoconscioushumans.com. Please subscribe to and like our channel. You can read more about our community at our Substack, Exoconscious Humans. With a paid $8 subscription, you can join our monthly Exoconscious coaching through our Substack. Nick is part of our weekly coaching. We also have coaching monthly that Nick also participates in. Our monthly coaching is the third Saturday of every month, and you can join that by just an $8 donation on our Substack to be a paid member of our Substack. Nick is retired from corporate America after an exciting 43-year career in information systems and networks. He's a Reiki master and a healer. And Nick has been with Exoconscious Coaching about 2.5 years now, I believe. We formed some exciting relationships, trust relationships that have created the fertile soil for an invention that Nick has brought forth called the beacon. And this is an introductory discussion with Nick about what the beacon is, how it works, how it's been a co-creative force in his life. So welcome, Nick, to Exoconscious Experts and Experiencers.
I'm pleased to be here.
Is there anything about your career that you wanted to add about so people get a better grasp of maybe your background as we begin to define the beacon?
My background is really a lot to do with systems. The entire universe is a collection of systems within systems. And I think that's about all I can say at this point, because when you're young and you don't know everything, you have to take one step at a time and get from here to there.
Could you give us an idea of what the beacon is and how this idea came to you?
The beacon, in my mind, is a tool to be used to help raise the consciousness on the planet and also cultivate at the same time exoconsciousness. It is an unusual creation in the sense that it is a completely spiritual device. So it's a conscious field of spiritual energy located in a static position, immersed in the earth itself and the immediate area around the earth. So the idea of the beacon is to shed light or energy onto the earth using energetic tools that slowly cause change to take place from day to day. The analogy of the beacon, that's like a lighthouse. A lighthouse beacon rotates, and as it rotates, it makes the light from the beacon on the lighthouse hits things, and those things stay in the light for a period of time while the light rotates. The exoconscious beacon works in a similar manner to that. That anything that you would try to do that would create a serious impact on people, if you tried to make it happen instantly, you would get bad results because people don't know how to cope with instant anything, really. So the way this works is that the beacon, if you would, its light field, stays in a stationary position while the earth rotates, and its dimensions are such that it creates a timed interval for exposure to the light or the light energy, so that everything that it does, the effect of it is gradual and it's incremental. You had a thermometer and you put a match under it and it heated up to like 80 today. And tomorrow you came by and you did it again. You used 2 matches this time and it went up to 90. And the next time you put in another match and it comes up to 100. This is kind of it. So it's an accumulative process that takes place energetically when the Earth passes through the energy field that is the beacon. Now, the beacon itself has its own consciousness and intelligence. I like to think of it as a computer, and it has its program and it has its sensors and that kind of thing. And so what it is doing is it's looking for the easiest way to raise the consciousness on the planet. What we're going to talk about here is networking. To raise consciousness, you have to have a vibration that is higher than the one that you have now. And when the vibration goes up, it attracts another vibration of the same. And the more of those points of similar vibration that exist, the more you accelerate the increase in vibration. And so that's how it works. So if you could start with one person, and then it would be affected by the second person and the third person and the fourth person. And then collectively, we're starting to accumulate a lot of energy at a higher vibration. And that's essentially what this thing does. Additionally, there are certain individuals that have higher vibrations already. Those people are easier to impact and more likely to respond in a way that helps the objective, which is to raise consciousness and exoconsciousness. So exoconscious people happen to have character set that is different from your average human. It's different because of the propensity to have an open mind and to consider problems completely. And so what happens when you're exoconscious is that you feel the need for contribution to a larger group. And therefore, you have a tendency to take action on your own to help move that energy along. And so the beacon has in its program something that tells it to seek out people who have the potential or already have exoconscious abilities. And these are mostly psychic things. So what we're talking about here is senses. So yes, you can see, you can smell, you can taste, you can touch, all of that. But exoconscious people have psychic senses. And, you've probably heard the words before. People are clairaudient and clairvoyant and all of that. So those are the psychic senses. Exoconscious people, they don't have all of them, but they have some of them. And they use those to help bring society along. They share. And I think that's one of the most important things in all of this is that one person shares with another. There you go with networking. So I'm letting you know about my energy and you're giving me back your energy. And we find a common place between the two of us. And that's a third kind of energy. And that's what keeps going. And it keeps proliferating this set of circumstances that raises the consciousness on the planet, takes advantage of people who have those extra psychic abilities to make things happen.
the system not only includes humans, exoconscious humans, but it also includes other beings. So you came into Exoconscious Coaching 2.5 years ago, and give us a little bit of your personal experience of how this happened, how the beacon happened. Like,
yeah, okay.
A little historical reminiscence.
Well, I guess I've had a lot of good support in the Exoconscious group. When you find that you are having these experiences, people, if you tell somebody about it, they just look at you like you have 3 heads or possibly more. And being in that group gave me confirmation by communicating with the other people in the group about the things that I had experienced that I hadn't really revealed to anyone. And then I started to feel much better about this, that I wasn't nuts and that these things actually were happening. And I had a number of experiences. So although I'm more spiritually oriented, I have had contact with extraterrestrials, craft, been on them, gone to other planets, that kind of thing. And so I guess that's where this starts to come from. So at this point in time, when I joined the group, I'm already having all of these experiences, but I'm still questioning everything. Now that I'm in the group and I feel much better about what I'm doing, I'm really paying attention to it. And that's making a difference. So you give attention to it, and then you get more of it. And that's the way the universe works. And so you're like a member of the universe and taking advantage of how it works. And I think that's really pretty much where this all started. So for me, I get downloads, information at night. So I have to say probably half of the time I'm awake between 2:30 and 4:30 in the morning and having some sort of an experience. And I pick up information here. And that's how this all started. I started to get messages talking about the beacon. At first, they didn't call it the beacon. They referred to it as a capability that could be created and how it would work. I thought that was cool, but I didn't know what to do with that. I meditate every day, and one day I was meditating, and all of a sudden this booming voice came in and announced itself and said, "This is Edgar Mitchell." And I knew who Edgar Mitchell was, but I had never heard from Edgar before. And Edgar basically said to me, look, we need your kind of spiritual character and nature and capabilities to help with our project. So don't go anywhere. Just hang tight. And so I was pretty much in shock. I mean, it's not every day somebody busts into my meditation like that. And Rebecca assures me that that's within his character. So I said, okay, that's it. And then I didn't hear anything for a while. And then I started to get more information. So the way things come to me is, generally speaking, I just know them. One day, something changes my focus, and I find that what was behind that thing is completed. So that's what started to happen with this. And I was talking about it in our group, And everybody was getting kind of excited about it because they liked the long-term capability of this beacon thing. One of our members is in communication with a group of entities, the Council of Eight. At one point, we had a channeling that Kevin Briggs was doing for us with the Council of Eight. And a question was posed to the council about how they could help us with the beacon. And the council responded by saying, oh, yes, the beacon. All right. You are assigned to Arna and Orla. They will help you with the beacon. That started the building of the team of entities that worked on this particular project.
Could you give a little description of Arna and Orla and the kind of their capabilities? And
Arna is a blue avian entity. I think they hooked her up with me because I was a healer and that we would get along well together. Orla is tall, white, Nordic. And if I have this correct, her specialty, I want to say microbiology, but that's not it. It's more sophisticated than that. But it has to do with the science of manipulating biology. Those were the two. As soon as that happened, I said, well, I need to give this a run. So I meditated and I tried to make contact with the two of them. I was able to initially make contact with Arna, who was perfectly willing to work with me and help me out. And so when I finished with her, then I moved on and I tried to do Orla. I did make contact with Orla. They were both really seriously different personalities, if you would, but both willing to work with me on the project. From there, things started to move on. The first thing that actually happened was that Orla told me that I was a visual learner and that I should make vision boards for what I was going to do. It's kind of interesting when you deal with these entities because they basically read your mind. So Arna said, you're going about this the wrong way. And I said, you don't even know what way that was, but she did. And she said, you need to approach this from the point of view of healing. Because the root cause of why people are not having their consciousness raised has to do with the energetic blocks and conflicts they all suffer from, which unfortunately on your planet starts immediately as they emerge from the womb. And I said, oh heavens, this is going to be interesting. Here we go. Because I get information from other entities, my guides, and I can selectively choose to connect with, I do get other information. And so it was kind of this thing is they all seemed to know what I was doing. So it wasn't like I was going around telling everybody I was going to do this beacon project. They already knew, and they all wanted to help. So I would get bits and pieces of information that I needed. And I think what I want to say is from using the council people, Orla was really the one that would beat up on me. No, that's not going to work. Think about it like this. Think about it like that. And I began to understand that they didn't understand. That is the ETs on the council some of the nuances of what it means to be incarnated as a human. We would end up in a situation where they couldn't tell me what to do. I had to determine what to do and tell them that I thought this was a way to approach that aspect of the problem. And they were all very willing to get that information. And so what started to evolve here was like, and because I come from corporate America, it was a work team. At one point I said, oh, I should have just a team meeting. Apparently I'm not capable of team meeting telepathically. One at a time is about all I can do. So I had to do it, kind of in piecemeal, which, took a while. But the idea I want to communicate here is that it was a team project. Those two individuals knew that I was getting information from other individuals, and that was fine with them because they don't know everything and they picked up things from the process. That's pretty much the way this thing evolved. So I would come back and say to them, I think we need to do this and that. And if they didn't agree, they would tell me. If they wanted to say, change the direction a little bit, they would tell me. But then there were other pieces where they were perfectly willing to just allow me to go to somebody else and get that missing piece, if you would. And so that's the way this thing was evolving. And eventually there were work papers that came out of this. So there was the problem in communication. So in telepathic communication, these people they just basically blurt out a huge amount of information at a thought form. And I would get a piece of that, but I would have to wait for the rest of it to come through because that's the way it works with me. So, I get a chunk and I go oh, so there's going to be more coming, I can tell, but I have to wait for it to assemble itself within me so I can access it. So it wasn't a quick thing. It wasn't like somebody was giving me a set of instructions. It was a collaborative project. And it was not something that could happen instantly. It had to take time. And then there was a shakedown process to try and find all the, if you would, loopholes in what we were doing. Because part of this problem was that this beacon is a conscious entity and is intended to live indefinitely. All of the implications of that had to be built into this creation. I think one of the interesting aspects of this is you as a human don't necessarily do much thinking about infinity. What do you mean it's got to last forever? Well, it's a very beneficial item. It has to last forever. And so how you control it is very important. And so the beacon is controlled by intentions. Intentions of the exoconscious community, of which I am a piece. And so the way this works is if we want the beacon to behave differently, we need to have an intention for it. But the original creation has the highest order of intentions around it. You can't ask it to do anything bad. It won't. The very first thing in the creation of the beacon was to make sure that no negative forces could influence it in any way. So it, if you would, it has a shield on it that repels anything that would be harming its goals in any way. So it's a rather interesting concept. And when it comes around to, I think that would have to be a separate discussion. How do you, as a human working with non-humans, articulate what you need to articulate to do a spiritual energy creation with consciousness and intelligence? How does it keep going? Does it ever break down? Think of it like a machine. So you had to figure out all of the different loopholes in it and plug them up.
And your risk management.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was how to do that beacon management. That's what it is. And so in the end, what we did was we came up with a solution, because the intentions for it have to come from an exoconscious community. We set up a way to do that. And so we have 3 people that are called beacon keepers. And they are the people who are allowed to put forth new intentions.
Do you want to explain how you chose the beacon keepers?
The beacon keepers?
Geographically and...
Yeah, okay. So there are a whole bunch of interesting aspects to this. And the idea of maintaining the beacon is pretty much that if you had to leave it alone to its own consciousness, it would continue to function indefinitely. So you don't have to tweak it. It's okay by itself. The concept of this is that you don't want to have all of the beacon keepers in the same place. We have one beacon keeper that's in the UK, one beacon keeper that's in Florida, another beacon keeper is me, and I'm in Arizona. It was suggested if we could get one in Asia somewhere. And that's all because of our own human technologies and things like that to make things easier to do. And that's how that works. And how did we pick those people? Besides geography, what I got from a message was they should be more, if you would, spiritually oriented, big meditators. And so one of the beacon keepers is a meditation instructor, and another beacon keeper is a regression therapist who deals with spirit release and things like that. And me, I'm an energy healer. So that's how that was. It's not that there aren't other people in the group who could have probably done this, but that's how it gets managed essentially. But the part of the trick is understanding how to create intention statements. And when we want something to be done in the beacon that it's not doing already, we have to create an intention statement that will work. And so it's probably separate discussion on intention, but it's very important to get it right.
Working in this co-creative way that you explained kind of organically, where there'd be downloads and then you would receive, a portion of information, and then more and more information would accumulate until you knew the direction to go, or you would make a decision and there would be a response to your decision. And looking back at, your 43 years in corporate America, you retire, you become an energy healer, and now you're working, let's say, in consciousness science with the beacon. What have you learned about yourself as a human in developing this tool of the beacon? exoconscious human?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest appreciation I have now that I didn't really realize before was that it is possible for you to come to understand things about your existence and existence in general that you were totally unaware of before. I think that's part of, if I would call it the magic, is coming to understand how other things work. And I think one of the biggest things that I learned very early on in this particular project was how people who are not in the physical have access to everything, including your mind. So if you would, I mean, they don't care about lots of things, but this was a significant thing. And it was like a kind of, people were all aflutter about it. It's like, oh, yeah, the earth, it's time for the earth to move along. We're really getting tired of holding this place up. We need to raise the consciousness level down there. So, yeah, this seems like a really good idea. So this idea apparently is the amalgamation of lots of thought from other entities that all came to coalesce around this thing and said, like, yes, this needs to be, if you would, a spiritual energy machine with consciousness, and it needs to do this thing. And its thing is largely healing. And once things get healed, then it's a matter of just nurturing them along to see what takes place. Nothing's universal. Everything is variable. And because it is variable, when you're human, for example, you want to put tags on everything. What do I call this? They don't need to call things something with a tag on it. It's just very fascinating how other entities work and what's meaningful to them. I think that's the greatest benefit of being involved in this project and the other things that we do.
Have those realizations changed you as a person?
Oh, yeah, I'm way more open than I was. I thought I knew some stuff. I didn't know anything. But I think, again, as you come to learn more about how the universe works, you get more of an appreciation for, if you would, the variability of everything and everything being in motion and everything changing all the time. And so when you're in the physical and you're down here on the earth, you don't want to work that way. You want things to be solid, material things, and nothing actually is. And you come to have a lot of respect for that. So instead of coming to the kind of conclusion I would come to before I had these experiences, I'm way more, shall we say, anticipatory that I'm going to run into things that I've never run into before. And one of the common things that I run into all the time is that there aren't any vocabulary words that I can use to label things because there are none. It's like exoconscious. Now that's an interesting word, and Rebecca came up with that word, or she had help with it.
Yeah, I had help with that.
But the fact of the matter is, exoconscious is a word that has a huge amount of information connected with it. It's not simple, like, it's a red coffee cup with two handles. Nope. That is not it. You can't even get close to it that way. So I think it gives you a completely different perspective on everything. And it's kind of like having your first ET experience. You're awestruck by that. And after you have more, you're not quite as awestruck, but you've got a new set of disciplines in your head that lets you deal with these things.
So talking about language, because we in the coaching group discussed the need to create a new language, and you described the beacon as a spiritual tool. So we know what a tool is. What spiritual means?
Spiritual, in this particular case, what we're dealing with is spiritual energy. All right, so let's say, for the sake of discussion, you haven't been really aware of the fact that you actually exist in the physical and the non-physical at the same time. And that what you experience in the physical, you also experience in the non-physical simultaneously. And how does that happen? It happens through spiritual energy. You can't see it. You don't have a device that registers it. The whole beacon is nothing but a collection of that specialized spiritual energy that is a force of life and creation at the same time. It's spiritual because there isn't anything in physics you can use to describe it. And since we're all down here on the planet in the physical, physics is a big deal. But there's all kinds of things going on in existence that have to do with spiritual energy rather than, if you would, physical energy. It's like consciousness. What is it exactly? We don't have any good words to describe that either. But we know that it is.
So the beacon is anchored in Earth and is having an effect or and has an intention toward exoconsciousness, exoconscious humans. How does that translate to its relationship with the cosmos and space as we go out into space, as we go to the moon, as we go to Mars? What's going on with the beacon, or is the beacon more geographically anchored into Earth?
It's more geographically anchored into Earth. So if it has currently, or was created with specific dimensions, you have to kind of get used to dealing with things that are kind of squishy. And because this is a squishy thing, it's an energy field, sort of like magnetism of a type of energy field. And it sits in a place where its upper level boundary is 100 miles above the top crust of the Earth. And its lower level boundary is 25 miles below the top surface of the crust of the Earth. And so it sits there and, can you feel it? If it touches you, the answer is no. But what you can come to understand is what it has done to you in its action it takes to heal you and bring you about to raise your consciousness and exoconsciousness. If you're on the moon and you're human, you can't see it, touch it, or feel it. It's down there. If you're looking down at it, you wouldn't know you were looking at it. If you're on Mars, the same thing. Someplace else, it's the same thing. However, if you are a being with higher level consciousness, then you are likely able to register that there is a spiritual energy mass there. And I think we had an interesting case. After we created the beacon, there were some remote viewers who released some information. And before the day we created the beacon, they were working on a future forecast. They saw that on the date we were going to make the beacon, there was going to be a huge energy event on the earth. And they couldn't explain it. They had never seen it before, didn't know what to do about it. Just said, hey, unexplainable energy event. We have come to believe that was the creation of the beacon.
Could you tell a little bit about, kind of to wrap us up right now, about what the launch was?
The beacon launch was a spiritual ritual. It began with a meditation, and then it moved on from the meditation and into a healing mode, if you would. And the idea was that we needed everyone who was involved. Now, when I say everyone, this was a cast of thousands, most of whom you could not touch, see, or feel. But everyone was invited to participate in this who had any kind of vested interest in it. So Mother Earth and her dominions involved all of the different kinds of creatures that have consciousness and a vested interest in raising consciousness, ascended masters, angels, archangels, guides, what I refer to as each individual who's physical down here has an entourage of spiritual beings that work with them on a regular basis. They're all invited to this. So we did that. We invited the Council of Eight. We invited all of these people. And it was basically a spiritual ritual. And then it takes you into the healing mode and the declaration of intentions for this healing, if you would. And it's basically itemized. And this is where all the rules are established for how the beacon works. All of the nuances, if you would, of how it would be managed. Basically, that's it. Probably the whole thing took about a half hour. And essentially, the only person talking was myself. The actual process, this creation process, was worked on by a lot of other entities because they all wanted to be satisfied that, it was going to happen the way it should happen. And we didn't leave anything to chance. So if there were gaps, if you would, there were intentional gaps. I'm going to throw one more thing in here. It is that you have to allow things to happen. So when you use your mind to call something out, like I'd like to have a new set of golf clubs, you set that intention right there. But then you need to allow the universe to create it. That doesn't happen instantly. But as long as you nurture the idea that you want the golf clubs, constant, if you would, attention is given to it and it manifests. And that's what goes on here. When we finished the work of, if you would, manifesting the beacon, it seemed to take it about a week to be fully functional. And it's a rather large item. you can do this because when it was created, it was sitting over the prime meridian. And so it covers a lot of cubic space and stuff like that.
Let's wrap it up and make a commitment that we'll have regular beacon updates.
Okay.
As how it's how the tool's being used here on Earth. There's so many other things we could talk about: issues of time and space, the core of the Earth, built-in morality. But let's stop at this point and leave it open-ended because, like you said, there's so many variables still at work. I want to invite anyone listening to this video that if they have any questions for Nick, you can put them in the YouTube comments and I'll get those comments over to Nick and we'll be writing a Substack about it. You can also comment there. Nick's bio is at exoconscioushumans.com. He also has his email there if you want to email him directly. Nick wrote a meditation that we use in our coaching group frequently, and that's also on our Exoconscious Humans YouTube. So you can see kind of how that meditation affects every member of our group, affects Nick, it affects the beings with whom we work. So that might also be of interest to you. Nick is part of our weekly coaching. We also have coaching monthly that Nick also participates in. Our monthly coaching is the third Saturday of every month, and you can join that by just an $8 donation on our Substack to be a paid member of our Substack. Some of the people that were new that came said, this is such a deep group. This is such a deep, intelligent group, and we're doing exciting co-creative things. And I just want to thank Nick for participating. Is anything else you want to add before we close?
Let's see if I can do this. Live long and prosper.
I love that. Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you.